Yo, how's it going, guys? So today I'm going to do a service on my Cinelli Gazzetta, just a bit of general maintenance. I've noticed a few things that are a little bit worn or just need a bit of attention. So first thing is my flight saddle. The leather's starting to show a bit of wear, as you can see. So I've got some Brooks Proofhide, and I'll use that to give it a bit of a polish, and it should bring a bit of colour back and put a bit more life into the leather. So secondly is my Thompson stem. A couple months ago I noticed a crack in the faceplate, and it's actually slowly been getting bigger, so I've stopped riding it. I couldn't find a silver replacement locally, so ended up getting this pretty cool looking blue one. So pretty happy with that. So the drivetrain is pretty grubby, same with the frame, so I'll give that all a good clean. Forks are showing a little bit of rust coming through where the clear coat's scratched or chipped, so I'll use some WD-40 or similar just to treat them. And the wheels have a little buckle, so I'll have a go at truing them. Pretty happy with this headset, Cane Creek 10. It's probably about 2 years old now, and looks like the seals have done a pretty good job at keeping out moisture because it still looks brand new. So got the bike all stripped down now, just going to clean the frame with some muck off. It's really good on the grease and grime, and then use some Bike Protect just to give it a nice protection and shine. So I decided to leave the cranks and bottom bracket on, as I fitted them not too long ago. You can give them a spin and you can generally feel if there's any play by giving them a wiggle side to side, and if it's freely spinning, it should be fine. If you don't know the history of the bike, or it's a pretty old bottom bracket or cranks, I'd go ahead and remove it, check it out, tighten it, and then just have a feel with your fingers on the bearings. And also check your chainring and teeth for wear. You really don't want to be running a worn chainring, because that just increases the risk of your chain slipping or coming off. So the frame cleaned up pretty nicely, looking pretty shiny with the Bike Protect. I'm going to move on to the forks now. Just going to give them a clean to get rid of the dirt, and I'm going to use this CRC, basically the same as WD-40 or GT85. I'm just going to coat the forks in that and give them a wipe down, and that should just give it a nice protection layer. So now I'm going to move on to cleaning the chain. Good thing to do before you do this is get a chain checker, check your chain for wear. They're not that expensive. You don't really want to run a worn chain. It'll just wear out your cog and your chainring super fast, and it'll end up being more expensive in the long run. So yeah, make sure your chain's not worn. I just get a plastic container, chuck the chain in there, get some general degreaser, give it a spray, give it a scrub with a toothbrush. You'll start to see that the degreaser starts to turn pretty black. That's getting all the grease and grime and shaved bits of metal out of it. Give that a clean out, do that a couple times, and then when it's pretty clear, I give it a rinse with water and then leave it to dry. Make sure you dry the chain properly, so I'll just leave it outside in the sun, get all the moisture out of it before refitting the chain. So moving on to the wheels now. I'm going to use a truing stand. You don't need to use a truing stand. You can get away with just using zip ties in your frame or your fork, lining the zip ties up with the rim, and you can see the buckle from there. But what I do to start off is I just feel all the spokes for their tension, make sure there's none that are too tight or too loose. Once I've gauged that, I'll see the buckle, give it a couple minutes truing it. This buckle isn't too bad, so didn't spend long on it, and I'm pretty happy with the result. And then from there, I just leave the wheel in the truing stand, give it a clean. Also good to check your bearings. Mine are sealed, so sealed bearings generally mean they don't need a lot of maintenance until they fully wear out. Mine are still fine, so I'll just leave them. And then for the rear wheel, on the cog, I just get a rag in between the cog and the hub and just give it a real good scrub. And then it's also nice just to check the lock ring and the cog's still tight. So this crack on the stem surprised me a lot. As a mountain bike stem, you'd expect it to be pretty robust. After a little bit of Googling, I saw that quite a few other people had experienced the same thing, so maybe it's a bit of a design flaw in the thickness of the faceplate. I'm not sure, but they do sell the faceplates separately, so maybe that's just an indication that they're known to crack. I'm not sure, but either way, not too fussed about it. I'm just glad it didn't completely snap on me. So now moving on to the saddle, I'm going to use this Brooks Proofide, pretty similar to most other leather polishes. So I'm just going to give it a nice generous coating over the whole saddle and leave it for 15-20 minutes, and then I'll wipe it off. So we'll see how it turns out. So just a little tip that I do with the master links of a chain is I always face the front of the master link in the direction of the chain. Just reduces the risk of a wild branch or stone or something bumping up and hitting it. So if it does, it's more likely going to push it on than off because it's facing the direction of the chain. So this is just a little bit of electrical tape wrapped around the crank arm. I use it just to reduce the wear from the pedal strap rubbing against the crank. Another little tip that I have for pedals is if you have these pedals with these flats or these corners, it can actually gouge into your crank when you're tightening it on. So you can get these little pedal washers that go in between, and it'll just save your crank from getting scratched up and gouged. So a good thing to remember is checking your chainring bolts. Make sure they're all tight and make sure they're all there. I've noticed on friends' bikes missing chainring bolts and they didn't know about it. I've heard pretty bad stories and seen some pretty gnarly photos of people losing 2 or more chainring bolts and their chainring is completely folding in half. So yeah, you want to avoid that. Just make sure they're all there and they're all snugged up tight. So I'm just moving on to the saddle now. Just going to remove the top layer of polish off it. It looks like it's already brought a bit of colour back and it's actually fed the leather. This saddle is probably 20 to 30 years old, so this is pretty important if you want it to last a long time. So the bike's all finished now. It's been cleaned and re-lubed, ready to roll. If you guys got any questions or suggestions, feel free to let me know in the comments. Thanks again for watching, guys. Peace.